Welcome to a very special episode of the podcast of the impossible. This is a replay of another podcast I was lucky enough to be a guest on, the very first episode of a brand new podcast called Cardtopia. And I was joined by the host of the show, Aroonrut, as well as the president of the global entertainment division of Cartamundi, Tricia Bouras. And Tricia is also the president and CEO of the U.S. playing card company, the folks who make Bicycle, which is not only my favorite deck of cards, but basically every magician's favorite deck of cards that I know. And so it was really a thrill to talk with both of them about a really exciting new thing that's coming to New York City this November. It is the Cardtopia International Playing Card Convention. So people from all over the world are going to be gathering in New York in November to share their love of playing cards. So it was a pleasure and a thrill to be on this very first episode of their podcast, and I thought you might enjoy it as well. So have a listen to the first episode of the Cardtopia podcast.
Welcome to the Cardtopia Podcast. My name is Aroonrut. Today we're talking to Peter Wood, a renowned magician and collector of the impossible based in Maryland, and Tricia Bouras, President Global Entertainment Division of Cartamundi and President and CEO of United States Playing Card Company. Welcome, Peter, and welcome, Tricia.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here. Hey, Peter.
Hi. So we'll discuss a lot of things on Cardtopia. This is our first episode. So I'd love for you, Peter, to kind of introduce yourself, and then Tricia, you can introduce yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, as you so kindly said, I'm both a magician and a collector of the impossible, and that is my full-time job. It has been my career since I was a little 10-year-old kid, and I'm based about halfway between Baltimore, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. So usually I work all around in that area, sharing magic up close and sort of medium-sized shows and even big stage show. It's so much fun, and I'm excited to be on the call and chatting about cards and Cardtopia with all of you today.
Welcome, Peter.
Thank you.
So, Tricia Bouras, as you said, thank you for the introduction. I am the global president of Cartamundi Entertainment, and also have the honor to head up United States Playing Card Company. We are based here out of Erlanger, Kentucky, which is exactly where I'm sitting here today. So super excited to be having the very first Cardtopia podcast out of the headquarters here, which is really where, from at least a card perspective and a community perspective, I feel like started a lot of it, not all of it. Certainly everyone in the industry, like Peter, like other cardists and magicians and poker players and collectors of sorts, all really started this amazing industry that we're lucky to be a part of.
I'd love to learn about how you got into the card industry, Tricia, and later with Peter as well.
Wow, how I got in. So I would actually say it probably started out just as a player. As someone who loved cards and games, actually, my my friend group always calls me kind of like she's called me the game master. They always know it's always going to be what's the game, what's the card game, what's the game overall going to be for tonight. So I actually was taught games by my grandparents, so it's been handed down over generations, but simply transformed. Of course, I've taught my kids games as well. So I was actually in a different industry and got word of an opportunity in this field from Cartamundi. And I was, quite honestly, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is a job. Because I think when you do something you're so passionate about, it doesn't feel like a job. So taking something I personally loved, taking something that I feel like I've been crafting on my own over many years as a manager, as a leader, as a brander, and someone who really believes in community, I was like, absolutely. Been with the organization for almost a little over a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And it has absolutely been a wonderful journey because I get to meet people like Peter. And then I'm like, really, again, pinch me. This is a job. And I met Peter. I met you at the embassy where we actually, I got a picture with the Smurfs too. So it was kind of like a double win. So that's how I got into the industry.
Thank you, Tricia. And Peter, how did you become the magician, and how did you get the title of the collector of the impossible?
I guess for my mom, I don't know. Collector of the Impossible is, sort of how I've evolved into. But, One of the reason I think magicians love playing cards is because it's kind of like the magician's piano. There are plenty of places where you'll go and there will be a piano there. And if you know how to play a couple of songs, all the way up to, your Billy Joel, then you can use that instrument to engage with people and to entertain people. And so because most folks have a deck of cards in the drawer in their kitchen, if you can learn how to do a couple of cool tricks with that deck of cards, then you are able to do these amazing magical things almost anywhere because playing cards are so ubiquitous. So I'm sure that's how I got started. I mean, literally, I've been working with playing cards since before I can remember. I mean, that's obvious how long it's been. And then specifically with bicycle cards, very early on when I get like a magic set as a child, a lot of times the deck of cards that comes with it is they've cut some corners. They're trying to sell the kit for as cheap as possible. And I even at an early age, I sort of realized the benefits of using some cards that, first of all, are better quality so that you can do some of the moves and displays and things like that magicians will. But also, I want it to look like the deck of cards that's just in everyone's drawer at home, right? Everyone's game cabinet. And so for me, that's why, again, I have been a fan of the U.S. Playing Card Company for forever, just because that is, on the one hand, it's what professionals are using to entertain people as a professional magician. And at the same time, it's what my grandparents would bring out whenever we would play card games at Thanksgiving. So definitely engaged with bicycle cards for decades at this point.
And I think both of you shared the similar story of your grandparents kind of like bring you into the card world and introduce you to the card games. I think that's amazing. What was the first game that you played, if you can remember?
I come from a euchre family. So we're big euchre fans, and in particular, we would drive up to Canada for some reason, even though we're all based in the Maryland, Pennsylvania area. We would drive to another country and play card games on a lake all week long. So I have awesome. Memories of that. Certainly, lots of poker. Now I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and we're working on 500 Rummy because it's a sneaky way of teaching her how to add all these numbers together. So, but I think I'll say euchre. That's my official answer.
How about you, Tricia?
I was so ready. I was like, please ask me that question. So my family, my mom's side is from Nebraska, and my family on my dad's side is from Ohio. So Midwestern, very Midwestern roots. And we used to every summer go out to my mom's parents in Nebraska. And every Sunday night we would have popcorn and apples. That was like the special kind of and play cards. And so that's like a memory that sticks in my mind. And my grandmother, who was actually a elementary school teacher, taught us how to play spoons. I don't know if you've ever played spoons, but it's like musical chairs, but you do it with spoons and then cards. And it's so much fun because it's a simple game, but it gets you interactive and it's fast. And it's a little competitive too, right? Who's going to get that last spoon? And I remember seeing my grandfather bolt over the table to grab the last spoon, and it was really good memories and a lot of fun.
So we just had card game night or game night in general at the agency where each of our team member bring their games, and spoon was one of them actually, where we just learned.
I love it.
We just learned it, and yes, there were leaning on the table. And it was really fun.
Yeah. Were you one that dove for the spoon?
No, I was like one of those that kind of like discreetly take it before anyone else sees it.
Good. That was your technique. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So let's talk about Cardtopia. I think I want to learn a little bit about your vision, Tricia, as the global CEO and president of USPC and Cartamundi Entertainment, and what you envision Cardtopia to be.
Wow, it's a great question. I would first say what people like Peter and every other person that loves cards and has a craft, I want it to be what they envision it to be, right? Because it really is about being a uniter of all people that love cards. My vision is to be that uniter, right? How can I be a part of something bigger than me that allows people that come together and express their craft, their love, like Peter said, right? I mean, this is something that you've been doing for years, and I can't wait. I know I did get to see it. One magic trick in DC. I can't wait to see more, but people of all cultures, crafts, love of different cards, different games, all coming together at one moment in time to participate in something bigger that really is about what's going to happen. Because that's the part, like, that's magic. That's what happens when you do magic or cardistry or you play a game or you're in a tournament. It's always what's going to happen next. So that is truly the vision.
Yeah, we definitely want to see all card communities at Cardtopia. So I think that's something that the card world have been kind of missing. And I think that's also a question for you, Peter. What, as a magician yourself, what kind of activities or performances or entertainment are you hoping to see in Cardtopia?
So magicians have conventions as well. I think like a whole, and I've been to a good number of magic conventions. And one of the things that I find so fascinating is in my professional work, I end up working at a lot of conventions, and it'll be like a lawyer convention, an accountant convention, like it's by profession. There's something about a convention where it's passion that brings people together. I love that it's going to be such a varied, diverse, different ages, different jobs and different stages in life, and all sharing this one passion. I'm excited about that sort of, getting to interact and engage with people that I wouldn't normally get a chance to, but we have this shared love of playing cards. And so I just think it's really cool that just like any sort of a con, it's something where folks are dressing up in costumes or they really love a particular franchise or whatever that might be. I just think it's really interesting when it's a convention that's grounded in passion and is going to have such a wide variety of people attracted to it.
When you attend the events, whether as a performer or as a guest or attendee, can you tell us a little bit about like what was your most magical moment or your favorite moment, whatever that event is? I just want to kind of understand the experience that you received that, that might be something that Cardtopia could craft to put together.
Yeah, I think I would love to be surprised by seeing something that I haven't seen before, or I'm sure somebody is going to be thinking about cards in a way that I haven't, and then maybe they're able to achieve something that I didn't think possible. So the fact that I'm sort of chasing the impossible, I'm sure there are folks who would not call themselves a magician, but will have something to do, a skill that they have that they can do that is going to feel magical and make me feel amazed and experience wonder. So I'm very excited about that. And definitely from other conventions that I've been a part of, there is something about the local magic shop, which of course all small shops are just going to the internet. That's just the way the world is going. But there is something cool about hanging out at a magic shop on a Saturday afternoon and exchanging ideas with other people. And again, it can be professional magicians. It can be amateur magicians who have been studying stuff for 50 years. Like there's a whole diverse group. And there is something about the exchange of ideas physically in the same space with people that is really hard, if not impossible, to replicate on the internet. There's a certain spontaneity of, that was really cool. Let me show you this, okay, oh yeah. And sort of that back and forth. It's really going to be difficult to do that, especially that efficiently in a digital world. So I love the idea that a bunch of people from all over who may not have been in the same space previously will be given the opportunity to do so. And then, just the exchange of ideas is going to be really exciting to be a part of.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think when we attended last year's event, what we learned from the most is that people are so engaging and everyone is just willing to teach their trades,
right?
If you will, because I was trying the card throwing. Of course, I'm an amateur, but I'm being sucked into this world of cards, and I absolutely adore it, and I love it, and I want to learn more. And people were willing to just show me how to do it. And we start to grow from like 2 to 3 person trying to throw cards, and it turns into like 6, 7 people and a bigger group of trying new tricks and things with each other. So yeah, I absolutely agree. And being together in a physical space that kind of enforce all these like jam sessions and places and spaces for people to be able to play and to do all of that is amazing. It's a wonder.
Yeah.
Tricia, and when we're speaking about wonder, what kind of moments that would kind of give you that wonderment sensation, if you will, in these shows or in these events?
I'm going to think back to Cardtopia last year. You know, it's interesting as I was listening to you, Peter, it's almost like festival comes to mind to me, because it was so, I think, blend of them and what you were saying too is interactive, of spontaneous jams, people teaching one another a trick or a move, being a part of watching Rick Smith Jr., right, set the Guinness World Record for card throwing, and then at the same time being able to like sit and have a chat with Richard Turner, it was very humbling for me. There were, I think, 2 moments of wonderment that, like, I came into it thinking one thing, right, and I absolutely, the surprise and the delight's 100% what I would expect. But 2 things happened that I did not even see in a realm of coming, because I didn't know. One was we were sitting in the Collector's Cove, which we were looking at a lot of the old decks and different, papers and print plates from our archives. And a gentleman came up and he was like, wow, like he was asking a lot of questions. And then he actually started teaching me. And he was like, I actually brought some of my collection with me. And he had a case with him that was like with a lock and chain around his wrist. And it was an amazing wealth of information. And it was so comprehensive. I actually asked him very impromptu if he would be willing to like speak to the group, right? And he started showing some of his collection. So to me, that was complete wonderment, because he was showing us products and decks that were older than things that we even had in our archives. So that was amazing. The second thing is several people from the community wanted to design card products and card decks with Bicycle. And they were coming up and asking about, wow, I really wish I could do a deck like Chris Brown did, or, I think Chris Ramsey. And I was like, well, you can. Like, that's something that we really want to try to be there and allow people, if you have a vision or a design or a dream, like how can we help co-create that and make that happen? So that was another moment of like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that we were not making ourselves accessible to people that wanted to create with us.
What would you think is the out of the box activity that could happen in Cardtopia that may or may not relate to card, but it's something that it's kind of out of the box, it's out of the ordinary, something that's kind of unexpected to the card community, but they would really enjoy?
Oh, wow. That one is a zinger of a question, Em. This year, because of community members reaching out to us, giving us suggestions and different ideas, one was spirituality. Spirituality is such a big part of our culture from all over the world, and we actually have quite a few people in our community that are, leading in what is expert card reading or tarot. And so it was like, how do we fold that into this experience in a way that's truly authentic? Because it's not playing cards, but they're cards, and you do play with them, you read them. And so the other thing that was kind of cool was, I think that was maybe my idea, is actually came from one of our Latin partners, because they did this really cool thing. I think it was last year. People that love cards, they wanted to get tattoos. And so they actually helped make that happen. So I thought, wouldn't that be cool if we brought some leading tattoo artists to Cardtopia to give people tattoos that might want it. So,
yeah, I think that's something that I would be interested
I
in
know, me
as well.
too. And my mom would be like, "You
Yeah.
got a tattoo?" Yes. So unexpected.
And we can definitely work with artists to collaborate on like, the artwork, the patterns, what's going to be the tattoo styles and all of that. I think that it's full of possibilities.
Absolutely.
And yeah. And Peter, I think you mentioned earlier that you'd be interested in being surprised in Cardtopia on something that you may haven't seen before, or whether it's a trick, whether it's around magic. But I want to know, are there any other card communities that could wow you? And if so, which community are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, I mean, certainly cardistry. I mean, that's the closest aligned to magic, but it's also funny where I've been working my whole life to hide my skill with playing cards, because if people see me and it looks like I'm really, if it looks like I'm juggling, then in a weird way, that sort of may telegraph what I'm doing. So I have a ton of respect and am always loving watching somebody who has sort of taken it in the opposite direction. Like, no, I am going to show off. I can do this really cool thing with a deck of cards. So yeah, as much as I enjoy hanging out with other magicians, I expect that I will be mostly surprised by folks who are not magicians, and whether it is juggling or whether I've gotten to hang out with Rick Smith, the Jr., a couple of times. And, I had never even thought of card throwing as a thing at all. Like, I've never even tried tossing it into a hat, let alone, having my own world record. So the fact that someone is doing something else with something that I'm very familiar with. I'm sure there's also fan art communities of people making crafts with playing cards that I know nothing about. It is completely outside of my world, just because what I want when I'm engaging with an audience is I want to just have it be a regular deck that you would have at home. And also, I mean, artists who are creating amazing, very different decks of cards, as Tricia was saying, the ability to create something and not have it just for you, but have, hundreds of decks printed up, and then you get to share them with a bunch of your friends and the community at large. So yeah, I think I'm most, the surprise that I'm expecting is probably not going to come from a fellow magician. It'll probably come from somebody who I don't even know what I don't know. Right. So someone is going to surprise me just because I never thought you would do that with a deck of cards.
Yeah. And I think you kind of allow us to highlight on the vision of Cardtopia a little bit there. It's to celebrate the art and sciences of cards, of all cards. And I'd love to know how, like, the arts and sciences of your performances, how you put the time and effort in crafting each performance or each trick. Like, how does it get easier over time, or it's still a little tricky to kind of try to find the way to entertain people? And with your arts and sciences of how you put it all together, how does that translate over time for you?
Parts of it get easier, certainly, just in terms of the more experience I have, the faster I'll shoot down a bad idea. I'm a huge fan of Penn and Teller, and listen to them talk about their behind-the-scenes creative process. And in a lot of cases, it is how quickly can we determine that this is not a good idea? This is not something we want to pursue. And while that sort of on the surface feels very pessimistic and negative, that really saves them a lot of time in their organization. And so I've been finding that as well when I collaborate with my friends. If I have an idea for a new routine, I'll start by talking with trusted colleagues and say, hey, cut this down. Tell me why this is not a good idea. Tell me why I should not invest my time and resources into pursuing this. And if they're having a hard time doing that, then maybe that's something that's worth looking for. But that requires a thick skin, because, if it's my idea and I think it's a good idea, and then I go to a buddy and they say, I don't like it and here's why, it has taken many years for me to sort of realize that, okay, even if my feelings are hurt in the short term, in the long term, they just saved me a lot of time and money. So that definitely gets easier. And then also just knowing where to source things from. And, the joke now, I mean, so much of my show does not come from a magic shop because, the title of Collector of the Impossible, the idea is that, people are going to see things in my show that they're not going to see anywhere else. And so the way I'm able to do that is either by sourcing one-of-a-kind things or in many cases creating one-of-a-kind things. And so even, I can remember years ago, I built this machine that allegedly would tell what someone's chosen playing card was. And it kind of looked like a slot machine. It had these wheels that spun around with, the value here and the suit over here on different wheels. And then at the end, we hit a button, it didn't work. And the machine ends up, the front falls off and there's smoke that comes out and their card is like stuck on the inside, charred. And that was a one-of-a-kind prop that nobody else had. And I loved the process of building it myself. And so that sort of thing does get easier, I think, with time. But, what gets harder, honestly, is that, we're still hunting. Magicians are always trying to stay both ahead of technology, but also utilizing it to our advantage. So I will do some things sometimes and a guest will comment, oh, I think that card is like an LED screen. Like I've seen that they've got really thin LED screens now. And I'm really excited for an LED screen that is the size of a playing card, but that technology, as far as I know, doesn't exist yet. So too with, people accuse me of having RFID tags inside a deck of cards, and they think that I'm using some high-tech sort of thing there to make that happen. So it's fascinating where, on the one hand, cards are just so basic and simple, and there's an elegance in that simplicity, but then I do also have to make sure I'm putting things in there so that people know that I'm not using technology that would not have been in my budget 10 years ago, so I didn't have to worry about that. But as that tech gets cheaper and more widely available, then I sort of have to have enough of a pulse on technology to stay ahead of it, to let folks know that's not what I'm using to achieve something impossible.
What would be the advice you give to your younger self now that you're here?
I guess Bitcoin, invest. No.
Classic.
Buy Microsoft. Netflix is going to be bigger than Blockbuster. That's what I would say. But also, when I was younger, I didn't realize as much the whole art thrives in its limitations. And there is something about picking a lane. Just in general, most of what I do, I'd love for it to look like it was on stage 100 years ago. It's not a period show. It's not like I'm trying to make it feel like I'm going back in time, but I have picked a certain aesthetic for my show. And so that saves me a lot of energy where if see some prop or if I'm working on an idea with a Rubik's Cube, for example, I know that that's not a good fit for me. So if something comes out on the market that is, a trick with a Rubik's Cube or an iPhone or whatever, anything that it is newer than 100 years, then I immediately know it's not for me. And that allows me to sort of, have a much more defined lane. So it's hard though, because I had to find that lane. I guess the advice that I would give my younger self is just to try as wide of a variety of things as possible, but then sort of find something that really does speak to you. I know that there are magicians who only do high-tech stuff. Like they want everything to look sleek and modern. And so they'd probably be using a deck of cards that looks, some metallic inks or something that it looks, from the future. So I think I'm glad that I eventually sort of settled into a theme and an aesthetic and a lane. But at the same time, I don't know how anyone finds that other than trying a bunch of different things. It's the Edison idea of, I found 1,000 ways that didn't work in order for me to find the one filament that was working for the light bulb. So yeah, I think trying a variety of different things, and then as soon as you can, when you sort of feel drawn to something, stick with it and have it be your focus or your specialty.
Peter, I have a question for you. Do you still have your time smoke machine?
I don't. I have to check. I believe that I actually sold it on eBay.
Wow.
So, and now it is in either your archives or it's in that room with the Ark of the Covenant at the end of Raiders. I don't know.
It sounded so cool. I loved it.
As silly as this is, I also have to think about the cubic inch to showtime ratio. And it was this big thing. And as much as I enjoyed the eye candy, the amount of time that it took up on stage was not worth the hassle of lugging it and an extension cord and all that. So unfortunately, I'm glad I tried it, and I think I have video footage somewhere, and I used it for a while. But sometimes it's just something really practical, like it's just too big, and I'm not hauling it around.
Right.
And after all of that trials and errors and trying different items, how do you end with cards?
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to the flexibility of cards. When Tricia and I were hanging out in DC, I was walking around. Like, I was able to be completely mobile, but the fact that I am able to, I can't think of another, we would use the word prop, but just another object that is so instantly recognizable, but also you can do such a wide variety of different things with. Because even if I bring out like a book, they're all stuck together. Like, I could have someone pick a word out of a book, or find a page or something. Or if I did a trick with a coin, there are plenty of tricks where something appears or disappears or bends. But there's something about card magic where in my library here behind me, there is a whole section dedicated to just card magic, and it is the biggest subsection in the library. It is, I have books on rope tricks and coin tricks and fire tricks and all sorts of stuff. But there's something about the fact that it is that compact and instantly recognizable, and yet the amazing variety of things that you can do with it, and that people continue to come up with cool new things. I think that sort of is why I'm drawn so much to playing cards.
That's amazing. And how do you feel about the city and the audience in different cities reacting to your shows and performances? Does that impact in any way that the narrative and the culture of different cities kind of play out with the performances? I
guess I don't notice it quite as much geographically as I do, other demographics. So whether it's age or whether it's, again, profession. So there are a lot of times, if I'm working for a tech company, the reactions are much quieter because the wheels are turning. They're not going to necessarily engage or react in the same way as a group of, I did a firefighter convention, and that was a lot more hanging out, joking, having a good time, that kind of a thing. So that always is interesting to me, is to sort of the way people are engaging with magic, because it can be very polarizing. At its core, the whole joke about magicians don't use the word trick, we're not quite as hard and fast as Job is with that. But, the idea that you are being tricked, that I came here to fool you, can be really uncomfortable for folks. And so a lot of people will sort of process that in different ways. Hopefully they know that it's done from I am bringing love and entertainment to the table, as opposed to some sort of power trip. Ha ha, I know something you don't. But that can be something that is a challenge, and different groups will sort of react to that perceived challenge in different ways.
And Tricia, so Cardtopia will happen in New York City on November 4th. And what is the reasoning behind New York City as the location for Cardtopia?
Well, first, I'd say the community voted for it. It's really where, I think, again, it's always about we're the uniter. We want to make sure we're listening to the community. So there's so many roots in playing cards in New York City. So that's one. Two is it's really where all cultures and crafts and different people meld. And the city never sleeps. It's magical. It has this rhythm that's just undeniable. And so all of those things, I think, just really make up what Cardtopia is ultimately about. And so it felt very natural. Also because this is an international experience. It's an international, festival. So it's the ability to bring all people from around the world together. That's another reason, because geography-wise, location, it's easy to get to. There's a lot of direct flights from major cities. So we kept all of that in mind because we really want to make sure it's accessible to everyone. And you get a great slice of pizza in New York. I can't forget that.
Yes. I think we want it to be like a very all-inclusive event, festival the way that you put it. And it's not just about the performers or the shows or people who are attending, but all the way to the food and beverage or the whole experience and the senses that we get from being there together, right? And the music and the sight and the sound, all of it.
All of it. Well said, Em. Very well said. Yes.
Yeah, I think people will. I'm sure there are folks who are either in the States or around the globe who have not made the trip to New York yet. I bet you this will push them over the edge and say, okay, this is it. This is the reason. Like, not only is this awesome convention happening there, but because it's happening in that city, now I can check a bunch of things off my bucket list, either coming early, staying late, whatever that might be, as opposed to having it in some, a city where we just sort of hunker down in the hotel the whole time. That's fun too for a different reason, but I bet you that will move the needle for a lot of folks who say, all right, you know what? I would love to hang out in New York for a bit. So let's make this happen.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so it's so interesting because I got a sneak peek on maybe where it's located in New York City. And it's exactly what you're talking about. It gives you so many possibilities to participate and be inclusive of everything happening, but access to so many exciting things in the area.
That's great. I'm excited.
When was the last time you were there, Peter?
I guess I was there about a year ago.
Okay.
I'm lucky to be about a 3.5 hour drive from there. So it's not unreasonable for us to do like a day trip to see a matinee or something. And I've also done several sort of magician field trips where I'll round up some of my buddies in this area and we'll go see one summer, there was Derek Delgadio was doing a show as well as Darren Brown, who's a well-known guy over in the UK. He came and did a off-Broadway run. And so, I've got a couple of things I'd love to try to get there sometime this summer for, seeing at least one show. Mm-hmm. So I'm lucky to be able to be sort of middle of the East Coast here. And so it's not, and I think that's another thing that's great about the location is that if somebody does want to make a road trip out of it, so much of this country is on the East Coast. And so I think that maybe next year's is Montana. I don't want to spoil it, but for New York City, it's going to be a lot easier sort of in terms of a central location for a lot of folks to be able to make the drive, and it's not going to take them 3 days to do it. So yeah, I love hanging out in New York.
Yeah, definitely. And you don't really need a car. As soon as you get there, you can just park it somewhere and you can just walk or take the subway anywhere you want.
Yeah, we did the train last time actually, and it was a really great experience just because then you can read or you can chat or you can do whatever, but then someone else is driving. And it actually took about, it wasn't any longer really because the train doesn't have to stop at stoplights, so yeah, I think like Tricia was talking about, the accessibility of New York, you can't beat it.
What would be one thing that like kind of pop into your mind when we're speaking of New York City?
I feel like Times Square is the obvious answer, but there's something about being there, and I can't. I only get that feeling. I get it in Las Vegas. I get it in New Orleans. I get it in New York. There is just something about being in that. Like Tricia was saying, there's the hum of the city, the rhythm, the pacing, and it's a fun place to watch people. It's a fun place to just hang out in between meal times, and then when it is mealtime, you've got all these wonderful options. You don't just have to go to the Olive Garden in Times Square. Yeah. So I think that. It's just it's an awesome place to hang out just to be, even if you didn't have anything to do. The fact that we have something to look forward to is icing on the cake.
Yeah, and for you, Tricia, I know you lived there and you were working in New York City as well. To go back there for Cardtopia, what is one thing that you're really looking for from the city?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think street performers. That's something so special about New York. That you really, in some other cities you can find street performers, but it's really, it originated in New York. And what is so cool about it is you can be walking down the street with a friend or a group, and all of a sudden you come on a street performer, and then all of a sudden there's 20 people, and then there's 30 people, and it's just this infectious energy to watch someone or a group perform. And then all of a sudden you're a part of the performance. I've been a part of some of those, and I'm just like, oh, that's so cool, because you really feel like it wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't planned, it just happened, and it's a memory moment that you'll have forever. So I'm looking forward to that, and I do think that that's part of what Cardtopia is going to be about. It's going to be a lot of those, like, oh my gosh, things that we didn't even think were possible are gonna happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And who would you bring to Cardtopia? I know you're definitely going to be there. Who would you bring with you to Cardtopia?
Peter, you go first.
All my friends. I'm bringing all my friends.
I love it.
Yeah, no, I think I've not heard of any other magician friend who has done anything like this. Again, with specific to playing cards, other conventions, sure. But I think that there will be so much interesting cross-pollination that can happen there, where if I can, get some of my buddies from the Baltimore and DC area to, we all do the road trip up there, that I'm sure that we're going to learn things and be amazed by things that will, in either direct or indirect ways, affect the magic that then we're able to bring back down to this region. So yeah, I think I'm looking forward to that sort of, not only hanging out with a few people that I might bring with me, but also with, I'm sure, making new friends, and that common ground footing, I'm sure will turn into. I mean, I have friendships from people who are not in my region because I met them at another convention. So just being able to sort of form those bonds elsewhere is definitely something I'm looking forward to. So I'll bring a lot of folks from this neck of the woods, but I'm looking forward to growing that circle once we're there.
Absolutely. I think it will be such a success if we get a lot of international attendees. I'm from Thailand, so I'm definitely going to try to get my friends and family and people who love cards and into cards from Thailand to be there as well.
Awesome. That'd be great.
And Tricia, how about you?
Definitely my mom.
Mm-hmm.
She's like so excited. She's like, oh, and a couple of my really good friends are already like, when are the tickets going to go on sale? They can't wait. I would say colleagues from around the world. So like you said, it's a lot of Cartamundi international colleagues are already planning on coming. And so we have people coming from India, from different areas and countries in Europe, a few coming from Latin America, so even Asia, Pacific. So I really think it's to your point, it's going to be an international, I think, representation of all people really that love cards.
I really like what you said, Tricia, just now, that you would love to see Peter again in person very soon. And I think this is like a shout out to everyone that's what Cardtopia is for. I think we've met or seen other performers or card enthusiasts from the same community online, and Cardtopia is that location. Cardtopia is that destination for everyone to finally get to meet in person and experience all the wonderment that, of course, it's great to be able to engage and interact and connect online, but we know that that's not the same with hands-on, real-life, in-person experience that Cardtopia can offer.
Absolutely.
So I also want to link with that as well. I would love for the audience to follow Cardtopia on cardtopiaworld.com and Cardtopia World on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and to learn more about the event, to go in and check us out, buy the ticket, view more of the programming and the people who are going to be there, and follow our journey. We look forward to seeing you all in New York City on November 4th.
All right. Bye, Peter. Can't wait to see you.
Good seeing you. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Well, I hope you like that. And I'll also let you know that there are more episodes of the Cardtopia podcast coming. So you can go to cardtopiaworld.com or just search for Cardtopia. It's Cardtopia. Wherever you find your podcasts, I'm sure you'll be able to get into it. And that's also the best way to find out more information about the convention that's coming up this November. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.